Welcome to It's a Piece of Cake. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this incredibly easy princess doll cake. So even if you are a beginner, you can make this cake. It's a very simple technique that I'm going to show you, and you're going to have that little skirt kind of flowing down onto the ground or her dress. So first we're going to bake our cake, and I bake my cake always in my mixing bowl. So I put some non-stick cooking spray in there. Pour my batter. Now, of course, the more batter you put, the bigger your cake's going to be. The smaller you put, the smaller your cake's going to be. Then cook your cake, let it cool down, and then just take it out of your mixing bowl. And then that kind of gives you, for me, the most perfect dress doll shape. But of course, if you have a cake tin that's a princess doll shape, you can use your cake tin. But I find that if you don't have the princess cake tin, this is the easiest way to do it. Then cut them in layers depending on how many layers you want. Fill it with ganache or buttercream in between each layer. Stack it up. Seal the entire cake with your ganache or buttercream, and then pop it in the fridge and let that firm. Once it has firmed, we're going to take it out of the fridge and then cut a little hole in the center, and that's just so we can have some room to press in our doll. Now if you're going to insert the legs of your doll, you're going to cut a much deeper hole, but I'm just going to be putting a little bit of my doll in there, so I just need a small hole. And then I'm going to get my doll just to make sure. So see, if you want to put the legs in, you've got to make sure there's enough room for all the legs to go in. But I'm going to be using a different doll, so I don't need that much room, but I just showed that to you guys if you wanted to do that. Then you're going to roll out your piece of fondant. So I've got some blue fondant here. I've got some corn flour on the table that just prevents the fondant from sticking onto the table. And then I'm rolling out to get a nice thin piece of fondant. When you're happy with your piece of fondant, then you're going to get your cake, and all we're going to do is just gently drape that piece of fondant over the cake. So I've got my fondant, I'm happy with that now. There's my cake. I'm going to just brush it with some piping gel. You can brush it with water if you like, or piping gel, whatever suits you, and then drape your little piece of fondant over the cake, press it into the little hole, and then just move your fondant around. Cut away any excess that you've got. Now, the more fondant you leave, the more flowy your dress is going to be. So work out how much fondant you want to leave, and then get some paper towels. So there's just some normal paper towels, and then just cut them into pieces. And we're going to do that all around the sides of the cake, so none of the fondant is hitting the table. And that's so if you are going to be putting this cake on a cake board, I'll do that now, it's easier. I'm going to transfer it later, but if you do it putting it on a cake board, it's better to do it now. On a cake board, I'll do that now, it's easier. I'm going to transfer it later, but if you do it putting it on a cake board, it's better to do it now. Now, the more paper towels that you use, so if you layer it and make it higher, the dress will be more higher from the board. So if you don't want it too high, don't put too much paper towels. If you want it really high off the board, then just kind of stack your paper towels to get it really high. So now that I've got all my paper towels and I've covered all the corners of the cake, I'm just going to get a cake smoother and just smooth that top bit of the cake, just to make sure I've got a nice smooth fondant. And then I'm going to kind of just make some little pleats with my hands. So you could kind of use your fingers just to kind of give a bit more pleats if you wanted to, because the way that the fondant is going to dry up is just the way it's going to stay. So you can leave it for a couple of hours and let that fondant dry up, or it's best to leave it overnight and then just pull away all the extra paper towels that you've got, and then your fondant dries up to that shape. So now, as you can see, everywhere we had basically paper towels, that gives us the actual shape. So it's dried up and stayed into that shape. And then you've got this really very simple flowy cake dress. Now to make the top part of her dress, so I've got my doll here. I'm using a very old mermaid doll my daughter doesn't play with anymore. And all I'm doing is I'm going to show you two ways of doing the top. One is just draping some fondant over the whole entire doll. This is a very easy way, so if you're not very experienced in making the top, this is just an easy way. Just place the fondant on top, put some piping gel on your doll, cut away any excess fondant that you have on the back of the doll, and that just kind of gives you a complete top. So you've got the sleeves, the top, all in one piece, and it's very, very easy. The other way you can do the top is by getting a little piece of fondant and cutting out a rectangular piece, and then adding some piping gel onto your doll again, and then you're just going to wrap that fondant around the doll. So it's a very simple way of doing it, and then just cut out a little V just to kind of give her top half of her top a bit of shape. So I'm just kind of going in with a V and just going around the sides just to neaten up any extra fondant that I'll have. So you'll have something like that there. This is another very simple way of making the top. And then you're going to add some chocolate. I've got some compound chocolate. I'm going to use a glue and I'm just going to press her into place. If you're going to be using a doll with the legs, you're going to obviously insert the whole entire doll, or you can remove the legs and do it this way. So I'm just going to let that dry, let that chocolate dry up, and then that's going to hold it into place. Or of course you can use raw icing as well to stick the top part. Now to make the sleeves and a bit of decoration or a bit of work onto the dress, I'm going to use this silicone mold that I've got here. This is just a frame silicone mold that I have, but it's got like a little florally pattern and I like the design on this one. So I'm going to use this to get all the extra parts. So I've just put some fondant inside that frame mold, and then I'm going to release it away from the mold and then just cut a little bit off it. And then I'm going to use that to drape on the top part of her dress. And this just kind of gives me that nice little kind of florally pattern very easily. And then I'm going to use some piping gel and then let that kind of stick that fondant into place. So you can use any mold that you've got. There's so many options of molds available in cake decorating shops on eBay. And then to do the sleeves, I'm just kind of like rising up the fondant, so it kind of gives me a puffy sleeve. So same mold, but just kind of pinch the fondant on top just so it's nice and fluffy and thick. Then cut it in half and then put one half on the bottom and then use the other half just to put on top. And this kind of gives you a really fluffy, nice sleeve. And I'm doing the same thing again, put that fondant in there, kind of drape it on and then just pinch the sides just to give that the extra fondant that could kind of make it look fluffy. And then the bottom, you're doing the same thing as we did earlier with that top piece, just the fondant piece on the bottom of the dress as well. And then you've got this incredibly easy dress doll cake. This is very, very simple to achieve. Not like I said, if you are a beginner, you can do this cake quite easily. Then you can obviously transfer this now on a board if you hadn't already. You can also put this on like a spinning board, so you can get like a little spinning base on the bottom of your board, and then she can be twirling around. You could do that as well. So it's a very simple, very achievable cake, especially if you are going to bake your cake in that cake tin. So you can leave her just nice plain light blue like that, or you can add some shimmer onto her. So here I've got some piping gel, and then I'm going to add some fluorescent glitter. So now these glitters are available in your cake decorating shop, and all you do is you mix it in with that piping gel, and then it gives us like a paste. And then all you do is you brush on that paste onto your dress doll. So I've got the eatable glitter now with the piping gel, just going to make like a little paste, and then you can just, like I said, brush it on to your cake. I do have a tutorial which I'll put in the link below if you want to learn more about glitter, eatable glitters and brushing it onto fondant. But basically once you brush it onto the fondant, you can use any brush that you've got. I'm using like a soft spongy brush, and that kind of is just gives me a nice soft easy texture, so it doesn't put any marks onto my fondant. And then you brush it on and it gives you this really beautiful glittery look. And I'm going to brush that all over the cake, but then what I'm going to do as well is, because this fluorescent one's more like a clear glitter, I'm also going to do the exact same method by using some silver glitter as well, just to give me a bit of a highlight. Now, like I said, this is optional. You don't have to do this glitter bit if you don't want to, but in camera you actually can't see how beautiful and shiny it is, but if you did see it in real life, it just gives you this really incredible, very shiny, very like, because this one was fluorescent, so it had like shades of blue, green, yellow in the room, so it looked fantastic in real life, but unfortunately in the video you can't really see that. Here I've added some silver just to give me a bit of highlights to it. So the silver just kind of, instead of being the clear, it gives you that kind of really kind of darker shade that you can see. And again, like I said, in real life it looked a lot nicer. So I have also used this very similar technique to make this dress doll cake as well. So if you wanted to watch this video, I'll put the link here and you can watch that video to see how to make that one. So I hope you guys did enjoy this incredibly easy dress doll cake, and if you did, let me know in the comments below or by giving me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Take care and bye for now.